The sun was shining brightly that summer afternoon, and the riverfront was alive with the sounds of laughter and chatter. Families had gathered with picnic blankets spread across the grass, their children running and playing freely. Vendors were selling ice cream, cold drinks, and snacks. Boats floated lazily on the water, and the scent of fresh air mixed with the aroma of hot food drifting from nearby stalls. The place was a favorite for locals and tourists alike, a place where people came to escape the heat and spend time together. Among them was a young black boy no older than 12 who had a love for the water. He wasn't there for the food or the games. He simply liked to watch the river, observing how the sunlight danced on its surface and how the small waves moved with a quiet rhythm. He had grown up near the river, and it felt like a familiar friend. The boy's eyes were sharp and curious, noticing everything around him. He loved to study people, not in a sneaky way, but because he was genuinely fascinated by their actions and reactions. He noticed how children screamed in excitement as they splashed in the shallow parts of the river, how parents called their names with concern, and how a few older men fished quietly along the edges. Today he had wandered closer to the small wooden dock at the edge of the water, a place that wasn't meant for casual play. The dock was slightly unstable, with some boards loose from the years of exposure to rain and sun. People usually avoided it, but not him. He liked to sit there and dangle his feet over the edge, feeling the cool water splash gently against his toes. Nearby, a woman had approached the river. She was elegant, dressed in clothing that clearly spoke of wealth, something the boy had seen before only in magazines or on the television. She walked carefully toward the water, holding a designer bag in one hand and a smartphone in the other. Her shoes clicked against the wooden planks as she looked out at the river. The boy watched her from a distance, noticing how she seemed distracted, completely unaware of the small dangers around her. The dock creaked under her weight, but she didn't notice. The boy had a sense of the water that others didn't. He could feel its moods and movements, and he knew when it could be dangerous. And at that moment, something in the way the woman stepped made him uneasy. He leaned forward, curious and concerned at the same time, just as she lost her balance. It happened so quickly that most people didn't even notice at first. She slipped, her feet sliding on the wet wood, and suddenly she was in the water, flailing her arms, gasping for air as the current tried to pull her under. The boy froze for only a second, then instinct took over. Without thinking about the risk to himself, he jumped in. The water was cold and rougher than it looked. The current tugged at him, but he swam with all his strength toward the struggling woman. He reached her just in time to grab her arm and pull her toward the shallower part of the river. She was panicked, coughing and sputtering, her designer bag floating away downstream. People had begun to scream, some calling for help, others frozen in shock. The boy's small hands were strong, and he guided her carefully until she could touch the riverbed with her feet. Slowly, he helped her stand. Both of them were soaked, and her hair clung to her face as she gasped for breath. She looked at him with wide eyes, her fear slowly turning into disbelief and gratitude. You saved me," she whispered, her voice trembling. The boy, still catching his own breath, simply nodded. I just did what anyone should do," he said softly. His words were quiet, but there was a calm confidence in them that made her heart sink with both relief and amazement. Around them, people had gathered, some clapping, others recording the moment on their phones. But the boy didn't care about the attention. He cared only that she was safe. The woman's eyes were filled with emotion. She had lived a life where money and power often solved problems, but in that moment, she realized that no amount of wealth could have helped her against the river. Only this boy, brave and selfless, had done it. She reached out and held his hand tightly, not letting go. "Thank you." "I don't know what I would have done," she said again, her voice breaking. The boy shrugged, a small smile on his face. "You're welcome," he replied. Her gratitude was so strong that it made her chest ache. She had never expected that someone so young, so ordinary-looking to most, could perform an act so extraordinary. She looked around at the people who had witnessed the scene and realized that life could change in an instant. One moment she had been walking confidently along a familiar riverfront, and the next she was in danger, completely at the mercy of circumstances beyond her control. And yet, here was this boy, fearless and kind, who had saved her life. The boy's parents had arrived by this time, having been alerted by someone in the crowd. They ran to him, worry etched on their faces. "Are you okay?" his mother asked, pulling him into a hug. He nodded, laughing nervously. "I'm fine," he said. "She's fine too." He pointed to the woman who was sitting on the grass, wrapped in a towel offered by one of the onlookers. The mother looked at the woman, then at her son, her eyes welling up with tears. She had always known he was special, brave in ways that sometimes frightened her, but she hadn't imagined anything like this. The woman stood slowly, adjusting her wet clothes, and walked toward the boy and his parents. She extended her hand but then paused, unsure how to express the gratitude she felt. I want to thank you properly," she said. Her voice was steady now, but her eyes glistened. "You saved my life today. I will never forget it." The boy's mother smiled, a mixture of pride and disbelief. "He's just a boy," she said softly. "He did what he felt was right." The woman shook her head. "No, he did what most adults would be too afraid to do," she said firmly. "This was incredible." She took a deep breath as if trying to steady her emotions. "I want to meet your family properly, and I want to thank you all." The boy's father nodded, still amazed at how calm and humble his son had been throughout the chaos. The boy, meanwhile, stood quietly, his small frame trembling from the cold water, but inside he felt a warmth he hadn't expected. This was more than just a moment of heroism. It was a moment that could change his life forever. News of the rescue spread quickly. People shared videos online, capturing the boy's courage and the woman's relief. Social media exploded with admiration for the young boy, calling him a hero. But he didn't care about the fame or the attention. All he cared about was that the woman was safe, that the fear in her eyes had been replaced by relief, and that he had done the right thing. Later that evening, after the crowd had dispersed and the riverfront was quiet again, the woman couldn't stop thinking about the boy. She had experienced many things in her life: luxury, travel, recognition, but nothing had ever touched her as deeply as this simple act of courage. She wanted to ensure that the boy knew how much he had impacted her life. She called her assistant and asked for the boy's contact information, wanting to meet him and his family properly. She wanted to do something meaningful to show her gratitude, something that could make a real difference in his life, because she realized that acts of bravery like his deserved more than just a thank you. The boy went home that night exhausted but happy. He didn't know that his simple act of courage had already begun to change his life in ways he couldn't yet imagine. As he lay in bed, thinking about the river and the woman he had saved, he felt a sense of pride and wonder. For the first time, he understood that bravery wasn't about being fearless, it was about choosing to act despite fear. And tonight, he had made a choice that mattered more than anything else in the world. The next morning, he returned to the riverfront, not for attention, but because it was his favorite place. He thought about how life could be unpredictable, how moments of danger could turn into opportunities for connection, and how one small act could ripple outward in ways he couldn't yet see. Across town, the woman was also thinking about him, wondering how she could express her gratitude properly. She had a plan forming in her mind, one that would not only honor his bravery but also give him a chance at opportunities he had never dreamed of. She didn't know exactly how it would unfold, but she knew this young boy had touched her life in a way that would stay with her forever. And so, the riverfront, the sun, and the rushing water had witnessed the beginning of a story that neither the boy nor the woman could have imagined. A story of courage, gratitude, and the unexpected ways in which lives could intersect and change forever. The next few days passed slowly for the boy. Life at home felt the same as before, but something had shifted inside him. The memory of the woman's frightened eyes and the way he had pulled her from the river stayed in his mind. His parents noticed a new quiet confidence in him, a small but unmistakable sense that he had done something remarkable. He didn't talk much about it, but every time he went to school or played with his friends, he felt different, aware that he had faced danger and acted with courage. Meanwhile, the woman could not stop thinking about him. She had returned to her life of meetings, business calls, and travel, but the image of the boy rescuing her haunted her thoughts. Every time she closed her eyes, she could see the river, hear the water rushing, and feel the cold, powerful pull beneath her feet. And she remembered his calm face, his small hands gripping hers, and the quiet strength that had kept her alive. She realized that the boy had given her more than just physical safety. He had reminded her of something she had almost forgotten: human kindness, courage, and the power of selflessness. She called her assistant several times over the week, asking again for the boy's details. She wanted to meet his parents and thank them, but more importantly, she wanted to thank him in a way that mattered. She didn't want a gift that could be bought or a shallow token of gratitude. She wanted to offer him something meaningful, something that could truly change his life, because she had seen in him a potential that went beyond a single act of bravery. When the boy's parents received the call from the woman's office, they were astonished. At first they thought it might be a scam, someone pretending to be her. But the voice on the other end was calm, sincere, and unmistakably hers. She spoke about her gratitude, about how their son had saved her life, and she asked if she could meet them in person. The parents were hesitant at first. They were proud of their son, of course, but the idea of meeting a billionaire and someone so prominent felt overwhelming. They were not used to people of that status taking an interest in their ordinary lives. After some discussion, they agreed. The meeting was set for a bright afternoon at the woman's office. The boy was nervous, and so were his parents. The tall glass building gleamed in the sunlight, a world apart from their modest neighborhood. The woman greeted them warmly at the entrance, her smile genuine and kind. She spoke directly to the boy first. "I can't thank you enough for what you did," she said softly, her eyes meeting his. "You didn't have to risk yourself. But you did, and it meant everything to me." The boy looked at her, unsure of what to say. He had never met anyone so rich or famous, and he wasn't used to people praising him like this. "I just did what I had to," he murmured. His honesty and humility impressed her even more. She nodded, understanding that his bravery came from a place of heart and instinct, not desire for attention or reward. Over the next hour, they toured her office. The boy's eyes widened as he took in the artwork, the sleek furniture, and the views from the large windows that overlooked the city. But the woman did not show off her wealth. Instead, she spoke about ideas, about helping others, and about the importance of courage and integrity. She asked the boy about his life, his school, and his dreams. She wanted to know what mattered to him, what he wanted to do, and what he hoped for in the future. The boy spoke softly at first, then more openly as she listened with genuine interest. He talked about school, about how he loved reading and drawing, and about his curiosity for the world. He spoke about his friends, his neighborhood, and the times he would visit the river just to think. She listened carefully, nodding and asking questions that encouraged him to dream bigger. By the end of the conversation, she knew that this boy had more potential than most people she had met, and she wanted to help him reach it. Then she made a surprising announcement. "I want to give you an opportunity," she said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "I want to help you attend a school that will challenge you, teach you, and give you every chance to succeed. I want to mentor you, guide you, and be someone you can count on." The boy and his parents were stunned. The mother's hand went to her mouth, unable to believe what she was hearing. We don't know what to say," the father stammered. "This is incredible." The woman smiled. "You don't need to say anything yet," she said. "Just know that your son's bravery deserves more than words. I want to offer him a full scholarship to a school that can help him grow, learn, and explore his potential. I also want to offer mentoring, to teach him skills, values, and ideas that will help him in life. I want him to know that his courage has not gone unnoticed, and that it can lead to amazing things." The boy's eyes widened, and he looked at his parents. Is this real?" he asked, his voice trembling slightly. The woman nodded. "It's very real. You have a chance now to explore what you're capable of, to see the world differently, and to have opportunities most people don't get." The boy's parents were speechless. They had always wanted the best for their son, but this was beyond their dreams. They looked at each other and then back at the woman, tears welling in their eyes. The days that followed were filled with preparation. The boy had to gather documents, meet with school officials, and discuss what classes and programs would be best for him. The woman personally oversaw the arrangements, making sure everything went smoothly. She spoke to the boy often, not just about logistics, but about life, values, and confidence. She encouraged him to pursue his interests, to ask questions, and to never stop learning. When the boy finally attended his first day at the new school, it was overwhelming. The buildings were large, the classrooms filled with resources he had never seen, and the teachers spoke with warmth and encouragement. At first he felt nervous and out of place, unsure if he belonged. But he remembered the words of the woman. Courage is not the absence of fear, but acting despite it. And so he took a deep breath and stepped into the new world with determination. Over the next few weeks, he began to adjust. He made friends, learned new subjects, and discovered talents he had never realized. The woman continued to mentor him, introducing him to ideas, inspiring books, and activities that challenged him. She encouraged him to think beyond his neighborhood, beyond what he thought was possible, and to believe in himself. The boy's confidence grew each day, his curiosity expanding like never before. The woman also involved him in community projects. She wanted him to see the value of giving back, of helping others just as he had helped her. Together they visited local shelters, organized small charity events, and met children who needed guidance and support. The boy began to understand the importance of kindness, courage, and leadership. He realized that one act of bravery could not only save a life, but also inspire others, create opportunities, and make a difference in ways he had never imagined. One afternoon, as they walked through the city after a community project, the boy turned to the woman. "I never thought my life could be like this," he said quietly. "I was just a kid by the river, and now, this feels like a dream." She smiled and placed a hand on his shoulder. "It's not a dream. It's real, and it's only the beginning. Courage and kindness have a way of opening doors you never knew existed. You've started something that will continue for the rest of your life." The boy's parents watched their son transform. They saw him becoming confident, independent, and aware of the world around him in ways they hadn't imagined. The woman's guidance had given him opportunities, but more importantly, it had given him belief in himself. He was no longer just a boy who had pulled someone from the river. He was a young person who understood that his actions mattered, that courage and kindness could shape the future, and that he had the power to create change. As weeks turned into months, the bond between the boy and the woman grew stronger. She was not just a mentor, she became a trusted friend, someone he could rely on, someone who listened without judgment and guided without pressure. She shared stories of her own life, of mistakes she had made and lessons she had learned, helping him understand that life was full of challenges, but also full of opportunities for growth and kindness. The boy began to dream bigger. He thought about the future, about what he could accomplish and how he could use his skills and courage to help others. He remembered the day at the river, the fear, the struggle, and the relief. That day had been the start of everything. It had shown him what was possible, and the woman had ensured that the opportunity did not end there. Together, they had created a path that could lead him to a life filled with purpose, hope, and possibilities he had never imagined, and so, what had begun as a single moment of bravery at the river grew into something far greater. It became a story of gratitude, mentorship, and transformation. The boy was no longer just a hero of that summer afternoon. He was becoming someone who could inspire, lead, and make a real difference in the world. The woman had turned her gratitude into action, and in doing so, she had changed a life forever. The riverfront, the sun, and the rushing water had not just witnessed a rescue. They had witnessed the beginning of a life transformed, a bond forged in courage and kindness, and the start of a journey that would take a young boy far beyond anything he had imagined. The boy's life continued to change in ways he could never have imagined. Each day brought something new, a new challenge, a new lesson, and a new opportunity. His schoolwork was demanding, but he enjoyed it. The teachers recognized his curiosity and encouraged him to ask questions, to explore ideas, and to think critically. He found himself fascinated by subjects he had never paid attention to before. Science became a way to understand the world around him. Math was no longer just numbers but patterns and logic. And literature opened doors to new worlds and experiences. He discovered that learning could be exciting, even fun, and that knowledge gave him power to dream bigger than he ever had. The woman remained a steady presence in his life. She often visited his school, not to show off her wealth but to engage with him directly. She asked about his classes, his friends, and his projects. She would sit with him, talking for hours about ideas, about the world, about responsibility, and about courage. She told him stories of her own childhood, of mistakes she had made, and of the lessons she had learned. She wanted him to see that life was full of choices, that some were easy and some were hard, but every decision shaped who he would become. At home, his parents noticed the change in him. He was more confident, more thoughtful, and more aware of the world around him. He spoke about his dreams in a way he never had before, imagining possibilities that had once seemed impossible. He dreamed of traveling, of helping others, of using his talents to make a difference. He even began sharing his experiences with his younger siblings, teaching them about courage, kindness, and responsibility. The family began to see a new path opening up before them, one they had never dared to imagine. The woman also involved him in events beyond the school. She invited him to charity galas, community projects, and small gatherings where he could meet people who were working to make the world a better place. At first, he felt nervous and out of place. These were people from a world far different from his own, people who wore suits and spoke with a confidence he had never experienced. But the woman guided him gently. She introduced him, explained his story, and encouraged him to speak about his experiences. Slowly, he began to find his voice, learning that his courage and actions mattered, that his story could inspire others, and that he had a place among people who valued kindness and bravery. One day, during a community project, the woman and the boy visited a local shelter that helped children in need. The boy had never seen anything like it. He watched as children who were struggling with hardship smiled when given small gifts, listened when someone took the time to hear them, and laughed at simple jokes. It was a world full of challenges, yet also full of hope. The boy realized that his own life, though far from perfect, had been touched by a kindness that could be shared. He began helping the children with reading, drawing, and playing games, seeing the joy in their eyes and feeling the satisfaction of giving back. The woman watched him quietly, proud of how he had grown. She knew that his act of bravery at the river had been only the beginning. She could see that he was learning to balance courage with compassion, bravery with wisdom. She knew that these lessons would carry him far in life, that his potential was vast, and that he could achieve things beyond what most people would imagine. At school, the boy continued to excel. He was not only academically gifted, but he also began to take leadership roles in projects and activities. His teachers noticed his ability to inspire others, to remain calm under pressure, and to approach challenges with thoughtful solutions. He became a role model for his peers, though he remained humble, always quick to give credit to others and never boastful about his abilities. His friends admired him for his bravery and kindness, and they began to see him as someone who could make a difference, someone they could look up to and learn from. The boy also discovered a love for art. He spent hours sketching, drawing scenes from his neighborhood, the river, and the people he met along the way. The woman encouraged his artistic talents, buying him supplies and sometimes sitting with him as he drew. She reminded him that creativity was a way to express thoughts and emotions that words could not always capture. His drawings began to tell stories, showing courage, hope, and kindness in ways that inspired others. As the months passed, the bond between the boy and the woman deepened. She became not just a mentor but a trusted friend. They talked about life, about dreams, about responsibility, and about the importance of using one's abilities to help others. She encouraged him to think about the future, to set goals, and to never underestimate the power of his actions. He learned that one small act, like saving a life, could lead to a ripple effect, inspiring countless others and creating opportunities that had once seemed impossible. One afternoon, the woman invited the boy to a meeting with a group of people who were working on community development projects. He was nervous, unsure of how to speak among adults who were so accomplished and knowledgeable, but the woman encouraged him to share his experiences, to speak honestly, and to offer ideas. To his surprise, people listened. They valued his perspective, praised his courage, and even asked for his thoughts on how to help children in similar situations. The boy realized that his story, his actions, and his insights mattered. He felt a sense of pride and responsibility, understanding that he had the power to influence change. Back at home, he shared his experiences with his parents. They listened with amazement as he described meetings, projects, and interactions that seemed far beyond what a boy of his age should experience. They were proud, but also humbled by the fact that their son had been given such an opportunity. They encouraged him to continue, to dream bigger, and to never forget where he came from. The woman also began helping the boy plan for the future in practical ways. She introduced him to ideas about saving, investing, and planning for education. She encouraged him to think about long-term goals, to develop skills, and to prepare for challenges that might arise. She explained that life would not always be easy, but that with courage, kindness, and preparation, he could achieve incredible things. Through all of this, the boy never lost sight of what had started it all: the river. He often visited the spot where he had rescued the woman, sitting quietly on the edge of the water, reflecting on how quickly life could change. He thought about how fear could be overcome with action, how one moment could define a path, and how kindness could create opportunities for both the giver and the receiver. The river became a place of reflection, a place where he could remember his journey and draw strength for the future. Over time, the woman also shared her own network with the boy. She introduced him to people in business, art, education, and philanthropy. These introductions were not just social. They were opportunities to learn, to gain insights, and to expand his understanding of the world. The boy was inspired by the knowledge and experiences he encountered. He realized that the world was much larger than his neighborhood, that there were countless ways to make a difference, and that he could be a part of something bigger than himself. The woman often reminded him of an important lesson. Courage alone was not enough. It needed to be paired with compassion, wisdom, and action. She told him that while many people might admire bravery, it was the combination of bravery and kindness that truly changed lives. The boy carried this lesson with him, applying it in school, in community projects, and in his interactions with friends and family. As the boy continued to grow, he began to mentor younger children in his neighborhood. He shared his story, taught them about courage, and encouraged them to act kindly and bravely in their own lives. He became a role model not just because of the act at the river, but because of the way he lived his life every day. People around him began to notice the changes, inspired by his courage, humility, and generosity. The woman watched all of this with quiet pride. She knew that her support had made a difference, but she also knew that the boy's own determination, bravery, and heart were what truly drove his transformation. She realized that helping him was not just about gratitude for being saved. It was about recognizing potential, nurturing it, and giving someone the chance to grow into their full self. One evening, as they walked through a park after a long day of community work, the boy looked at the woman and said, "I never thought saving you would change my life like this." She smiled warmly. "It was not just about saving me," she replied. "It was about showing the world who you are. Courage has a way of opening doors you never imagined, and your heart has made all the difference." The boy thought about everything that had happened: the river, the rescue, the school, the mentorship, the opportunities, and the people he had met. He realized that a single moment of bravery had transformed his life in ways he could never have predicted. He understood now that actions mattered, that kindness and courage were powerful, and that he had a responsibility to use his experiences to help others. As the sun set that evening, casting warm light over the city, the boy felt a sense of hope and determination. He knew that his journey was only beginning. The woman's support, guidance, and friendship had given him opportunities he had never dreamed of, and he was determined to make the most of them. He wanted to learn, to grow, and to inspire others. The boy's life had changed in ways he could hardly imagine. Each morning he woke up with new energy and a sense of purpose. School had become more than just lessons and homework. It was a place where he could explore his talents, ask questions, and meet people who challenged him to think bigger. He was no longer the shy, quiet boy who once spent his afternoons near the river. He had grown in confidence, curiosity, and determination. Yet he remained humble, always remembering that a single act of courage at the river had opened doors that he had never dreamed of. The woman continued to be a guiding presence in his life. She visited him often, not to control or supervise, but to inspire, mentor, and support him. She encouraged him to set goals and think about the long-term impact of his actions. Together, they planned projects, discussed ideas, and explored ways to give back to the community. She often reminded him that courage without kindness was incomplete, and that true leaders were those who acted not only bravely, but with compassion for others. One afternoon, she suggested they visit a local community center that helped children from disadvantaged backgrounds. The boy hesitated at first, unsure of what to expect. He had never been in such a place before, and he felt nervous about how he would be received. But the woman encouraged him to go, assuring him that his presence and story could inspire the children there. When they arrived, he was struck by the energy in the room. Children laughed, shouted, and played. Yet there was also a sense of struggle in their eyes, a need for guidance, encouragement, and hope. The woman introduced him to the children, sharing the story of how he had saved her life. At first he felt shy, unsure of how to speak in front of them. But as he began to recount what had happened at the river, his voice grew stronger, more confident. He spoke honestly about his fear, his instincts, and the decision he had made in a split second. He told them that bravery was not the absence of fear, but the choice to act despite it. The children listened intently, some wide-eyed, some nodding slowly as they absorbed his words. Afterward, the boy spent the afternoon helping the children with reading and drawing. He showed them simple ways to express themselves through art, encouraged them to tell their stories, and reminded them that even small actions could make a big difference. The woman watched quietly, impressed by his patience, empathy, and ability to connect with the children. She realized that the boy's bravery was not a single moment, but a quality that he carried in his heart every day. As the weeks passed, the boy's influence in the community began to grow. He organized small activities for children, helping them develop confidence, teamwork, and problem-solving skills. He worked alongside the woman to create programs that encouraged young people to act bravely, be kind, and support one another. Slowly, he began to see that his story could inspire change, not just in himself but in others. He learned that courage was contagious, and that one person's actions could ripple outward, affecting countless lives. Back at school, the boy continued to thrive. His teachers noticed his leadership, his curiosity, and his willingness to help others. He excelled in his studies, but he also focused on extracurricular activities that allowed him to express his creativity and develop new skills. He joined clubs, participated in community service, and began mentoring younger students. His friends admired him not only for his bravery but for his humility, kindness, and ability to see the best in people. The woman encouraged him to pursue his interests, whether in academics, art, or community service. She introduced him to professionals in various fields, giving him insights into careers, skills, and experiences that were far beyond what he had imagined for himself. She helped him understand that the world was vast, full of opportunities, and that he had the potential to achieve incredible things. One day, she asked him to join her at a city council meeting, where local leaders discussed plans for community development. The boy was nervous, unsure of what to say or how he would be received. But the woman reminded him that his perspective mattered, that his experiences were valuable, and that he had a voice that deserved to be heard. When it was his turn to speak, he shared his story, his ideas for helping children, and his vision for a community where kindness and courage were celebrated. The council members listened attentively, some nodding in agreement, others asking questions about how his ideas could be implemented. For the first time, he realized that his actions and words could influence decision-making, inspire change, and shape the future. At home, the boy shared these experiences with his parents. They were amazed at how much he had grown, how confident and articulate he had become, and how he had started to see the world in a broader, more compassionate way. They encouraged him to continue, to dream bigger, and to never forget the values that had guided him from the beginning: bravery, kindness, and integrity. The woman also introduced the boy to opportunities for personal development outside of school. She arranged workshops, mentorship programs, and experiences that exposed him to new ideas, cultures, and challenges. He learned about teamwork, problem-solving, and critical thinking. He participated in art exhibitions, science fairs, and community initiatives. Each experience helped him grow, giving him confidence and skills that would serve him for the rest of his life. Through it all, the boy never lost sight of the river. It remained a place of reflection, where he could remember the day that had changed everything. He often returned there, sitting quietly by the water, thinking about courage, gratitude, and the responsibility that came with opportunity. He realized that bravery was not a single act but a way of life. The river reminded him of the power of small actions, the impact of kindness, and the importance of making choices that reflected his values. The woman continued to support him, guiding him through challenges and celebrating his successes. She reminded him that life would not always be easy, but that resilience, courage, and compassion could carry him through difficult times. She encouraged him to take risks, try new things, and never be afraid to fail, because failure was often a step toward growth and understanding. The boy also began to inspire others beyond his immediate community. People who heard his story were moved by his bravery, humility, and compassion. They shared his story with friends, family, and colleagues. Young people began to see him as a role model, someone who demonstrated that courage and kindness could change lives. Adults admired him for his integrity and determination. Slowly, he realized that one small act at the river had set in motion a series of events that were touching countless lives. As months turned into years, the boy's relationship with the woman grew even stronger. She became a trusted mentor, confidant, and friend. They discussed life, values, dreams, and goals. She helped him navigate challenges, encouraged him to embrace opportunities, and reminded him to stay true to himself. She celebrated his successes and guided him through setbacks, showing him that life was a journey of learning, growth, and contribution. The boy also began to think about the future in practical ways. He considered his education, career goals, and the ways he could give back to the community. He started planning for projects that could help children in need, inspired by the guidance and generosity of the woman who had changed his life. He realized that opportunity came with responsibility, and that he had a duty to use his experiences to make a positive impact on others. One evening, as they walked through the city after a community event, the boy turned to the woman. "I never imagined that saving you would lead to all this," he said softly. She smiled, her eyes reflecting pride and warmth. "It was never just about that moment," she replied. "It was about who you are, the courage you carry, and the choices you make every day." That moment was only the beginning. The boy thought about everything he had experienced: the river, the rescue, the school, the mentorship, the community work, and the friendships he had built. He realized that life was full of unexpected twists, opportunities, and responsibilities. He understood that his actions could create ripples that extended far beyond what he could see. Courage, kindness, and integrity were not just words. They were principles that guided him and would continue to shape his life. Through the years, the boy became a source of inspiration for everyone around him. His story spread, not as a tale of fame or wealth, but as a testament to the power of bravery, selflessness, and compassion. He had begun as a young boy by the river, facing a moment of danger, and he had grown into a young person with the ability to influence, guide, and inspire others. The woman continued to remind him of the lessons that had brought him this far. She spoke of resilience, humility, and the importance of helping others. She encouraged him to dream big, to pursue knowledge, and to use his talents for the greater good. She showed him that true success was not measured by wealth or recognition, but by the positive impact one could have on the world and the lives of others. The boy also began to see the ways in which his community had shaped him. He recognized the value of family, the strength of friendship, and the importance of contributing to the well-being of those around him. He understood that his actions had meaning, that courage and kindness could change the world, and that every choice he made carried significance. As the sun set over the city, casting long,